Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Bundesliga show. Apologies for a slight delay in proceedings this morning, but we're back to talk Bundesliga fantasy football with you all, as per usual, joined by Rune this fine Friday morning, or what I should say fine in Sheffield. It's wet and miserable pretty much everywhere in the UK, and we were just talking off air, Rune, and that it's also not so nice where you are.
Yeah, it's the same in Copenhagen. It's been raining 24/7 lately. So yeah, just trying to stay indoors and work on my fantasy content. And of course, there's a big game to look forward to this weekend.
Yes, very much so. So yeah, big weekend ahead, big show ahead. So thank you to everyone tuning in with us. Let us get stuck into it. Obviously, before we do, make sure you leave a thumbs up on the show for all of Runa's hard work. Coming along, already loads in the chat. A few asked pre us going live as well. We'll get to it all as quickly as we can do for you. So make sure that you subscribe, press that red button, make sure you don't miss out on any of this excellent content. Of course, hop over to X and make sure you follow Bulinews, and that's at bulinews.com is where you will find them. Right, Rune, as per tradition, we'll start off with defenders. So we'll work our way through your budget, mid-price and premium, and then we'll get to some questions.
Yeah, and this week I went with the true budget pick for the budget option in defense, Max Geschwil. And I just noticed that he started last time, and he's only at 3 million, expected to keep his place at wing back against Frankfurt. So I just think if you need a really cheap starter, someone you just would like to keep on the bench, and just to come on if needed, then he could be an option now that we don't have Henry Chase starting anymore. It's not like I expect a lot from Geschwil, but he's one of the cheap starters that's available in the game at the moment. And of course, if you have a bit more to spend, 4 million more, for example, then you could go with Kriepler from Freiburg instead. And then my mid-price pick is really Orban from Leipzig. And actually, I had a look at his numbers, and he got 276 points last time out against St. Pauli. Not bad in a 0-0 draw. And he got points both from duels won and from build-up play, especially. And we also know him as a set-piece threat, of course. And actually, then I looked at match day 1 when he got a red card, and he still scored 191 points in that game, despite getting all those minus points for being sent off. So seems like he's a player who's a good fit for the new point system, and Leipzig have some pretty attractive fixtures coming up, and his ownership is at 1% at the moment. And then finally, I would just like to mention Mitchell Weiser again, because of course Werder were playing Bayern last time and didn't really stand a chance, and of course Weiser didn't do that well because of that. But I have quite high expectations for him this week against Hoffenheim. I think they had a quite poor game against Midfield in the Europa League the other night, and generally I think Hoffenheim are struggling a lot this season. So there should be plenty of chances going forward for Werder, and I think that could really, this could really be a great match day for Weiser.
Yeah, absolutely. So some good options there for everyone. Let's come to any questions that have been devised around defenders. There's a few in from Gavin, and I can see one question that kind of relates to what you've already picked up, Rune, but we'll come to it. So are there any decent starting defenders under 5 million euros? Bar Chase, Stuttgart, the only one I can say is Geschwil from Kiel, who obviously not the strongest at the back. So apart from those two, I mean, obviously the news about poor old Dan Axel, Zagadou with Stuttgart, him now being out of the fold for the foreseeable, said Seb Hoerner. So I guess it promotes the chances of Henry Chase to play more off the bench, although I presume it will still be Chabot and Rouault to start at the back. But it means he's probably going to be first drafted in from a substitute point of view. But any other apart from those two? I presume not.
No, not at the moment. Actually, I brought in Rosenfelder from Freiburg last week because it seemed like he'd suddenly become the first choice option at the back ahead of Lienhardt. But then he picked up a back injury that was only reported after the deadline. And of course, Freiburg went on to win 3-0 with Lienhardt and Ginter, and now they should keep their places at the back, and Rosenfelder needs to, work his way back into the starting lineup again. So at the moment, I think Ishwil is the best option in that really, really cheap category. And yeah, as Gavin points out, it's not like you have really high expectations for him. But then again, at 3 million, maybe that's okay.
Yeah, very true. Hopefully it's not a damage limitation, although Kiel do have it hard, unfortunately, from a fixture point of view. Just having a quick look at any more questions, especially around the defensive area. Yeah, let's come to this one from Jay. Good morning to you, sir. Hope you're doing well. Is there a genuine case to remove Grimaldo for only one match day? It would help spread funds for the midfield, which again was a great area to target this week. Players like Weiser and Raum could do better. Very interesting setup or question there from Jay. Rune, would you consider that? Would you also? Would you suggest it? Full stop.
I would at least consider it. I am actually considering it at the moment. But taking out a player like Grimaldo is always a big risk, of course, because we know he can always explode and have a great match, and he's shown that against Bayern as well in the past. Plus, his ownership is so high. But then again, on the other hand, if you want to take him out, then this is probably the match day to do it, and we have some pretty good alternatives at the back, the likes of Slotterbeck and Weiser and Orban, for example. And as you point out, Jay, that could help spread funds to midfield, because I completely agree. That's where most of the points are scored this season. Midfield is really the position to target. And also, I've also looked a bit ahead past the Bayern game, and then they have Holstein Kiel next time out. They have a Champions League game, and then they have a game against Kiel. And I expect some rotation for the Kiel game as well. I don't know if Grimaldo would get rotated out. He only rarely does so, but that could happen. So after the Champions League game, you could be in a position where you'd be doubting whether Grimaldo would start anyway, and the same with Viacek, actually. So I actually think that's worth considering. I'm pretty sure Alonso will rest some of his key players against Kiel. So I think that's also a factor and something worth keeping in at the back of your mind.
Yeah, no, 100%. So yeah, thank you for that one, Jay. That's a really interesting one for everyone to ponder this match week. One in from Jacob. Morning to you, Jacob. What do you think about Christensen from Frankfurt, who had a strong game yesterday? I suppose this is where we start to think about rotation risks as well, but he's a player that I've had my eye on for a bit. I think I actually threw him in not last week, the week before. I think he did okay, but yeah, in this strong performing Frankfurt side, although we have to throw in the caveat of, unfortunately, what they did defensively for the last few minutes of last night and threw away a 3-1 lead, which is obviously a great shame for them. But they're going good guns. So what would you say about Christensen for this week, or is he a potential rotation risk?
Yeah, pretty good option for this week. Away against Kiel, and he's made a very strong start to his stay at Frankfurt. And also he's the type of player that works well, I think, with the new scoring system. Very energetic, works hard, and wins a lot of duels. Also likes to come forward. So very good 1 week option because with Frankfurt they have Bayern and Leverkusen, if I remember correctly, after this one. So probably wise not to get too many Frankfurt players, but getting 1 or 2 could work out. And I think I think it's at 10 million. I think that's a pretty good price for Christensen, and could be worth a punt.
Yep, absolutely. I think that pretty much half covers this other question from Jay about Frankfurt fullbacks. But what about Mainz fullbacks for this this match week?
Yeah, I like MW5 especially too.
Yeah.
Who's priced at 10 million as well. Obviously, he had a quite productive game last week against Augsburg. With Mainz, however, the fact that they're without Nadim Amiri, that is a really big blow. And yeah, obviously, they need to find other solutions. They usually just give Amiri the ball in midfield, so that will be a big change, and you don't really know how that will impact their game. So that's a bit of a question mark, but it is a nice fixture at home against Heidenheim. Mainz are very good at home, so still back them to get a result there. So MW5 is a great alternative in the same price category at Christensen. Also has good potential this week and then also next week, unlike Christensen, because Mainz have 2 good fixtures.
They do. Then one in as well from Hafid. Given us a bit of a Sophie's choice here of who would we pick between Christensen, Muina. Is that how you say his name, Muina?
Yeah, I think
Muina,
something like that.
We'll go with that. I think I've probably been saying it wrong for a few weeks. And Nico Elvedi. I mean, if I had to choose, certainly based on form, I'd go for the middleman, the Mainz man. Those 2 crosses were really nice, both off alternate feet as well. And if Sieb and Burkhardt start again up top, then you've got 2 players who are very much lively in the box and good, good with their heads. So that's who I'd go for. Rune, who would you pick?
I think I just had a look at my phone just to check Elvedi's stats, because he's actually been doing quite well with the new scoring system as well.
Okay.
As far as I can see, he's usually getting around 200 points. So that's pretty solid, actually. I mean, long term at least, I think he's the best option of the 3, because Gladbach have a nice run of fixtures now. I'd say Christensen is probably the best if you just want to look at this particular fixture. I think he probably has the highest ceiling with Frankfurt playing Kiel. So I would probably just short term, I would go with Christensen if you can take him out next week, and a bit more long term, I think Elvedi would be my choice.
There we go. You got 3 different choices there, Hafid. So we're going for different ones. And obviously, one big question that Williams already posed to us is with the big question this week is what to do with one's Bayern and Bayer Leverkusen players. Of course, the big top spiel happening tomorrow afternoon / early evening. Yeah, what to do? Obviously, there's not been any Champions League football this week. It's just been Europa League. So there's not the case of necessarily thinking about rotation. Obviously, there's the big thought of looking at what strongest lineups both Kompany and Xabi Alonso can actually go with, and how they might play it. Is there going to be any kind of tactical underhanding or late surprises? It would be really interesting to see how they do both line up. But obviously, for those players that are going to be the usuals, the nailed-on starters, who's a flight risk, who are players that we may consider. I mean, it's something that we can work our way through as a question anyway, because we'll go through it in midfielders and strikers, no doubt, anyhow.
Yeah, that's the big question. I actually think like the premium options are pretty fixture proof. The likes of Wirtz and Kane and Musiala, probably also Grimaldo, and I expect it to be a high scoring affair. Can't really see it being a 0-0 draw or something like that. I expect both teams to get on the score sheet. They've both looked great attacking wise, but they've also shown some defensive problems. So I think, that bodes well for the spectators, and expect an exciting game. Bayern are a favorite. They're playing at home, so we'll probably lean more towards keeping my Bayern assets than the Leverkusen ones. And as Jay pointed out earlier, maybe you could consider taking, for example, Grimaldo out this week to free up funds to bring in some other players with a better matchup. I think that's at least worth considering. But with that said, wouldn't be surprised if Grimaldo and Wirtz and Musiala and Kane all have good games, because they're all very influenced and have a big influence on the way their teams play and are so involved. So it's a difficult one.
It is tricky. It's funny how we don't really talk about Frimpong much these days, isn't it? In terms of him being like a must keep compared to what he was last season. I wonder if the new scoring system of the game has suited him that much.
Yeah, I mean, I actually brought him in for the first match day, and he had, he got like 88 points, and I was like, okay, I'm selling him because I felt like bringing in both him and Grimaldo, and then he's actually been rotated out a bit, so he hasn't started every game either. And for most people, this year you can probably only afford one of him and Grimaldo. So I think a lot of people will go with Grimaldo instead because he's more nailed on and also performing better fantasy wise.
Yeah, no, 100%. Right, let's move on to midfielders. Excuse me, and then we'll get to more questions. So they're now going at the bottom of your screen. Rune, run us through these picks of yours.
Yeah, this week I tried to look for a bit cheaper budget option. I think this year it's quite difficult to find actual, real budget picks like we used to do it. But I actually think Larsson is a bit of a steal at 7 million. I was kind of shocked to see his prices that low because he was already a starter for Frankfurt last season, but he's clearly taking a step up in importance for them. And I think a lot indicates that this will be his real breakout season. He's already been being linked with some bigger clubs as well. And fantasy-wise, he's been pretty inconsistent. But when he does well because he did score over 200 points against both Hoffenheim and Gladbach. And I think this one could be another of those productive games against Kiel. I think he will be on the ball a lot. And a good differential if you need a cheap midfielder. But as I said earlier, it's probably a 1 week pick as Frankfurt have a Bayern and Leverkusen after this one. And then in the mid-price category, I just wanted to mention Ritsu Doan. I could just have gone with Vincent Grifo again, but just wanted to give a mention to Doan because he's been in great form as well. And he's averaged 210 points per game this season and scored 260 points last time out. So not as good as Grifo, but still very good. And Freiburg have a nice schedule. So if you need to spend those 2 million more that Grifo costs more, then you could go with the one instead. And also of course if you want to differentiate yourself a bit, he's a good alternative. And then finally Stöger, whose ownership is somehow only at 5% last time I looked, which is pretty shocking. Looking at the way he plays, the impact he's had at Gladbach. I think it's because there are so many good options in midfield, but 5% is pretty low if you look at how well he's played. And even last time out, despite Gladbach losing 2-0 to Frankfurt, he still scored more than 300 points.
Yeah.
So with Gladbach now having a favorable run of fixtures, I think it would be a very reasonable time to pick him up.
Yeah, the ever presence from a fantasy perspective, I think he's been excellent since coming into the team. So should definitely warrant a pick in your teams for a nicer run of fixtures to Gladbach, in which, well, the wins need to come regardless to kind of back up that performance level, which has been pretty good. Yeah, from the Foals. Right. Just want to come to any questions that have come in since, and I think a few that Gavin may have asked would have been around midfielders, but just want to come to this one that was asked or put in by Sad. So with the new scoring system, the 90 minutes will be shared among the premium players. There's Musiala, Ronaldo. Then you think it's a bit risky to keep many of them. So yeah, of course, when it comes to a game like this where you're lumping 4 or 5 players into one game and it disappoints, or players are injured or subbed off, then yeah, of course, it is a big risk. But we do talk about players that are fixture proof and are just of a certain level that will hopefully, certainly this scoring system, produce the goods for everyone, or for everyone that's picked them. So Rune, yeah, I think it's right for Sad to mention this and highlight it, that there is risk attached because it is a big game and it could go either way for many players. But still, I think fantasy players alike have just got to back themselves with who they're feeling needs to be in their team this week.
Yeah. Of course, it is a risk, but as I said earlier, I personally expect it to be a high-scoring game, and I mean, I could see all those 4 players doing well. Ulis, I would probably sell him because I could see him getting subbed off a bit earlier. Bayern have a lot of quality on the bench, and if they need a bit of spark in like around the hour mark or something like that, and he hasn't had a good game, then I could actually see him getting subbed off pretty early. I don't expect something like that to happen to the 3 other guys. I think Vias and Musiala and Grimaldo will most likely play the full game or close to it at least.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty confident about all those 3. But yeah, it is a risk, and I think if there's a week where you want to not have one of them, then it's this one. And you could really, differentiate yourself to others if you sell one of them and go with a few differential picks with a better matchup.
Agreed. A couple more questions. There was one that was asked prior to the show going live from Jason, a great viewer of ours. So thank you for asking this because he can't watch live. Has asked about who would go with Simmons versus Stöger. Simmons just hasn't quite cut it so far this season, has he? He's disappointed in every respect, and that's a great deal as to why Leipzig have struggled in these matchups where they've been great favourites to win, and they haven't done the business. He's a huge, important cog in their wheel, and it just hasn't worked. So I'd go to Stöger every time, currently anyway. What are you feeling about that matchup?
Yeah, I'll probably do the same, but it is difficult because we all know what quality Simmons possesses, and it hasn't worked out for him so far. Marco Rose talked about it at the press conference the other day, saying it seems like he's putting too much stuff in his backpack. He's maybe trying a bit too hard. Maybe sometimes he should just do the simple stuff, and instead of trying to take on defenders all the time and score amazing goals. But I think it's only a matter of time before he gets going again. And at home against Augsburg, who conceded 3 goals basically from Mainz's only chances last week, I think, could be a great game for Simmons as well. So that's really difficult. Would probably lean towards Stöger just because he's a more informed player and has done better generally this season than Simmons, but I would really like to have Simmons this week as well.
Yeah, no, he has done that. Yeah, we have to be honest there. A couple more, and then we'll move on to strikers. So Jacob has asked about selling Musiala or Wirtz, who could have some problems there again with a game against each other, to get someone in like Grifo and upgrade the defense or offense. So yeah, Jacob, just wondering whether it is worth again going on a punt here, possibly, and getting rid of Musiala or Wirtz, and then get Grifo or even upgrade other areas. Are we still? I mean, we're thinking that midfield is the real area of interest again this match week, and that's been reflected by pretty much everyone in the comments, and obviously what Rune's already established. But certainly an interesting question from Jacob.
Yeah, I think you don't necessarily need to have both Musiala and Wirtz this week, unlike any other week, basically. So that's a bit different this time around. And I personally back Bayern to get the win a bit more over Leverkusen. They're the favorites. They're playing at home. The way they played recently just looks so strong on the company. No offense to Leverkusen and Wirtz, who have been amazing too. But I think you could look to sell Wirtz also because, as I talked about earlier, the Kiel game could be a game next week. Could be a game where Wirtz would get a rest anyway. We don't know yet, but that could be the case if he plays 90 minutes against Milan in the Champions League. We'll see. But I think Grifo is close to a must-have player at the moment, with Freiburg playing St. Pauli. So get him at all costs. And then, maybe consider taking out Wirtz. It is a risk, but I would sell him of the two if I were to sell one of them.
Yeah, makes sense. And then one last one from Jay before we move on to strikers. Again, just from a time point of view, can we now comfortably say that for 4 million less, Elise can cover Musiala? Kind of. Well, obviously we talked about this in terms of certainly this week's game. Obviously, Elise has had such a great impact so far. I really feel like he is a star rising, in the Bayern ranks. And I think Company might be a manager or head coach that really relies on Elise in games to come and this season. But for this big match, you kind of feel like he's the first player that would be hooked from an attacking sense, if things aren't going the way that Bayern want it to go, rather than Musiala. So it's about kind of balancing, isn't it, Rune, I guess, between what you think may happen and the players, I will say, on the pitch.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far as to say he can fully cover Musiala, and my biggest concern is the fact that he's getting subbed off pretty early every time he plays. Actually, he usually gets 60-70 minutes perhaps if you're really lucky. But of course it costs 4 million less, but doesn't offer the same sort of security in your team as Musiala. He is the focal point in attacking midfield for Bayern and the one that will get most minutes. Also, as I said earlier, we have Sané, Coman, for example, to come on and provide fresh legs if we needs a break. I don't think they have the same kind of options to replace Musiala and the things he does.
Yeah, no, 100%. But again, good thinking and suggestions there, Jay. Right, on to strikers. Let's get into these for about 5 minutes, and then we'll probably have to call things. So get your questions in whilst you can. Over to you, Rune, to walk us through your 3 picks.
Yeah. First off, Junior Adamo from Freiburg. I actually tried to find an alternative in the same price category, but I just couldn't for this match day. Adamo actually disappointed last week, but scored a brace on match day 3, and Freiburg have a really good game at home against St. Pauli. So I just figured 6 million can't do any better than a Damo at the moment up front. And yeah, then my mid-price pick is Omar Mamouche, who's been in excellent form the season so far, and who's the second most productive striker behind Kane at the moment, which is very impressive. And now he will most likely, I can see there's a question about him playing 90 minutes in the Europa League, most likely start against Holstein Kiel. I would expect that, but actually that is a bit worrying that he played the full game against Pilsen in the Europa League. So just adds a bit of just a tiny bit of concern about his starting place, but still think he should play, and if he does, then he should have a really good game, I think. And then finally, Serhou Guirassy is my premium pick this week. 2% ownership, and it's a week where Kane and Boniface are up against each other. So maybe you want to look for someone else. Maybe you want to pair Kane with Guirassy if you have the funds for that. In any case, I think he's a great pick this week. Dortmund will be desperate to show a different face after what happened in Stuttgart last week, and I think they will as well. They're playing a Bochum side at home that's not looking very strong, to say the least. They weren't able to beat Holstein Kiel last week in a home game, so they're not in a good position at the moment, and I think Dortmund will win comfortably, and so Guirassy could grab a few goals maybe.
Yeah, he certainly could, and that's the Friday night game, if I'm not mistaken. So, obviously you can lead things a little bit later from a fantasy perspective and double check on starters. Right, I want to make sure that we cover Gavin's questions because he did ask them prior to the show going live, and he's probably very much soundly asleep right now. The first of his questions were whether it's worth doubling up on Mainz attack in terms of their home fixture against Heidenheim with someone like Lee and indeed Burkhardt, obviously no Miri from an attacking sense, so that obviously is a blow. Together, those two cost 20 million euros and have some nice fixtures coming up. First one up, Rune, what do you think to Gavin's thoughts on doubling up on Mainz?
Yeah, it could be worth it. It is a bit of a risk because I think Mainz have been quite inconsistent this season so far, and they are without Amiri, which, obviously is a big blow. So I think that's probably one too many Mainz player for me. One of them could work out. I wouldn't get two. Probably. I think Lee actually is a really good differential this week, and he will be even more important with Amiri out. Very good at putting opponents under pressure, and just an all-round very important player for the way Henriksen wants to play. So he's a good shout, and so is Burkhardt up front actually as an alternative to Mamouche. He's in that price bracket.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Gavin, we've covered Wirtz a fair bit, but we'll just make sure that we give you an answer on who to opt with in terms of Elise, Sturger, or Mio. Very interesting pick. He had a sublime game last weekend. Bringing back memories of that. It was very nice. I mean, Sturger's your premium pick this week, Rune. So does that mean you're going straight down the middle?
Yeah. Plays 90 minutes. Has a good matchup. Will do well. I think his floor is really high. So I'll go Sturger.
100%. Thank you for those questions, Gavin. Very much appreciate you getting them in early doors. Jay has asked forward questions. He's about to join a work call. Well, we appreciate you getting it in early there, Jay. Is it the week to go 3-4-3? And secondly, any doubts on Mamouche minutes? Yeah, so you've already kind of half covered that, Rune, but formation-wise, 3-4-3 could be an interesting one to try out this week. But do we need room for 5 midfielders? Tricky.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, it depends on the strikers you have. A lot of good strikers this week, but I'm not going to do that myself. I think I'll go with the 3-5-2 although that really hurt me last week because of Amiri's red card. I think I'm going to try it again and just let Adamo and Kane play up front. But there are some good alternatives, as we talked about. So if you can fit them in, then it could pay off.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic stuff. So that's all the questions that we've had in live. I don't think we've missed any that were asked prior to the show going live. So apologies if I have. So we'll have to call it there for this morning. But great fun as always. Thank you to everyone who's asked questions, got involved, and whether you're just watching in the background, that's absolutely fine as well. So all there is left to say is thank you for watching. Make sure you leave a like, comment along. As per, if you've not caught us live, we'll pick up any questions in the comment section prior to the 7:30 kickoff this evening. Subscribe, make sure you get involved with everything. Get involved in the league as well. If you haven't joined already, it's not too late. I don't think it is, but you'd be starting disadvantage. But there it is, Bulinews and Over the Bar. It's a growing league, in numbers. It's been going up and up in the last few years, and it's super competitive. So if you like a challenge, make sure you get involved in it if you're not already. And head over to X to follow. And that's follow at Over the Bar FB and Village Footy. And on Instagram, we are there as well. So yeah, good luck, fancy football players across the globe for this weekend. Enjoy your footy, enjoy your weekends. Thank you, Rune, as per, for great insights. And we'll see you on Monday to review it all once more. Cheers all.
Bye.